Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the new Finance Act, which has generated so much comments from everyone in the industry. Now we're trying to get a sense of what this Finance Act really means for SMEs. One man who knows how the industry feels is Celestine Okeke, who is the lead partner at CEDI, is joining us from our Abuja studios for this conversation. Good morning, Celestine. It's good to get together for the first time in the new year, 2020.
Good morning, boss, and thanks for having me.
Great. I'm sure you had enough time to listen to everyone regarding the Finance Act 2020. What's your general thought about this new act that's now been gazetted and put in place for implementation by the Nigerian authorities?
Okay, so I would take it from two dimensions. One is as it is an act for all Nigerians, and secondly, how it will impact on MSMEs, that's the micro, small, medium enterprises. For Nigerians, what I would see it as is a drive by government to improve on revenue collection so they can meet their public expenditure needs, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because Nigeria is one of the countries where the tax to GDP ratio is quite low, and that shouldn't be. Then for MSMEs, especially for the micro small enterprises, it creates some incentives to not let the tax burden become too much for MSMEs to bear. It exempts them from the category of taxes that ordinarily they would have been paying or they would have been made to pay over a period of time. So one, government needs to improve revenue so it can meet needs, especially for MSMEs also. Then also, government needs to also trickle down the effect much more to MSMEs. So it shouldn't end at exempting them from paying some category of taxes. It should also include seeing that the additional revenue would raise as a country, Nigeria, and MSMEs benefit from the investment that would make from such revenues.
Overall, is this a good one for small businesses, Celestine?
Absolutely, it is. It is. It is if you take it from two sides, one side being that government will then raise more money with which it can continue to support MSMEs as much as they need to support SMEs. Fine, that it is also. Then also exempting micro, medium enterprises from paying certain category of tax, say like for instance the corporate tax, the CIT, the PIT, and the rest. Most micro small enterprises are dealing below 25 million annual turnover, so they don't have to pay VAT, for instance. They don't have to pay the CIT, for instance. So it's a good one for them. But then government also needs to look at to take a broader perspective on what are the challenges MSMEs are faced with beyond just easing tax payment for them. But then it's a good one because one, government will have much more fund with which it can support MSMEs. And two, is giving MSMEs a soft landing from the impact that they would have had on the Finance Act's implementation.
Okay, broadly speaking, so this is a good one. But if you drill down and you're talking about how to improve tax and how to grow the economy, how critical is this SMEs? And if we try to apply this new Finance Act, in what sectors do you think the government would likely see immediate and very strong impact of this Finance Act?
Okay, so for instance, there's lots of emphasis on agricultural production, and is a place where MSMEs in Nigeria are not playing as much as they ought to play. So you talk about the value chain, for instance, the ability to not just plant and harvest, but to do some kind of processing for what has been planted is almost missing here. And if you recall the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics report published in, I think, July last year on the state of MSMEs in Nigeria, you will see that for the agri sector, MSMEs they are clustered around the micro space. Very few at the small and almost nothing at the medium enterprise level. So government could then use the Finance Act on, like I keep saying, in two dimensions, in two fronts. One, from the additional revenue it will raise to support MSMEs. And two, the reduced tax burden they will now be faced with to see how can we support MSMEs in this space, the agricultural production space, to move from just planting and harvesting to do some kind of processing. It may not be 100% processing, some semi-processing of what has been planted so that we can begin to address, one, food insecurity, and two, create improved productivity and livelihood for smallholder farmers. So the key impact will be in the agri sector if we continue to drill down the impact, like I said, because it won't end in government raising more revenue and then easing tax burden on MSMEs. It has to be raise more revenue and then strategically impact the MSME sector by rolling out policies and interventions that will benefit them. And then also, for MSMEs, right, fine, you can exempt them from paying some category of tax because they are doing less than 25 million per annum. But then what other challenges are they faced with that you can then say, okay, since we have done A, which is exempting them from paying VAT if they are doing under that threshold of 25 million, what else are the major challenges we can address so that the impact that this tax Finance Act is presumed, is assumed, is planned to have will not be warded off by other challenges. I'll give an example. In FCT here, there is an ongoing fight between the FCT administration and the area councils on who collects what tax, who collects at what time. And it's getting so bad that they beat themselves up on the street while trying to do tax enforcement. So if we say we are exempting MSMEs from paying VAT, but then the area councils or local government, as it would be called in some other areas, and the state government or FCT is going behind the doors to introduce new taxes, new tax regimes and the rest, it might just wear off the benefit that the Finance Act is going to bring. So while we have achieved this first step, I urge government to begin to go further, dig further to say, how do we consolidate on the gains of this Finance Act?
Is it all about tax and tax and tax, Celestine? Why so much emphasis on tax? Why not on other key areas of incentives, some of which you've mentioned, in some measure of specificity from you in terms of what can be done to help the MSMEs?
Okay, so I recall there was a conversation I had somewhere, I'm not sure where exactly, and I said something very clear. I said the Finance Act was not thought of to support MSMEs. The support we are seeing happening is like a knockoff effect of the Finance Act. So in essence, it's not a deliberate, it wasn't deliberately thought about to support MSMEs. It's just at the end of the day, they looked at, oh, how is it going to benefit MSMEs? So, okay, you are exempting them from paying XYZ tax if they are not doing up to this threshold. So if you keep asking me, and I keep saying, if you look at the MSME ecosystem in Nigeria, finance is not in the top three of the challenges they are faced with. There are lots of other challenges we need to begin to address. Like, for instance, what's the ecosystem for MSMEs in Nigeria? Policy-wise, infrastructure-wise, what level of access are they getting to the kind of support they need to thrive in Nigeria? So let me not to castigate what has been done in Lagos State, not to speak ill of it, but then if you have startups that are coming in and they are beginning to empower the small business space in Lagos State, you may not know how the Healing Bike empowers the micro small medium enterprise. It's doing so much because when somebody begins to work and is earning 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 daily, he will do some consumption financing. And who will he or she be buying from? From small businesses around that area. I saw a video yesterday where they talked about these food vendors who had cropped up in certain locations, people who have started doing some small businesses to service these businesses. So if we do not understand that, look, there are wider challenges, there are bigger challenges that MSMEs are faced with, the ecosystem they operate in, the policies that they have to contend with, the issues of almost absence of non-financial services. Still, take, for instance, if you want to start a business in Nigeria today, there is literally no place you go to that is run by government that can guide you through the entire process. So what you then have to do is to pay a consultant to put you through. That doesn't work. You pay so much in financing a consultant to do a business plan for you. So government needs to get to a point where we say, look, we are thinking around an MSME development plan in Nigeria, a plan that is designed to develop MSME over a 5 or 10-year period, and then say a component of it will be to address tax as it affects MSMEs and other challenges. If we do not have this holistic approach, whatever we do will be knocked off by something else. And I tell you, for instance, in the FCT, we still have an active ban on street trading in FCT. And there is an enforcement of that ban that is also draining the resources of the FCT. So if you then ease the tax payment for MSMEs, but then they cannot even trade in the FCT because you have an active ban on street trading. And also bear in mind that the bulk, like if you see the report MBS published last year, it tells you that for the MSME space in Nigeria, 94% are micro enterprises. So we don't even have much doing small and medium. They're mainly micro enterprises. So we need to get to a point where we say, look, let's sit back and look at what we need to do to develop the sector. Like I said, if you leave it at just the tax end, people still need to trade to pay tax, or people still need to trade to survive. If they are not able to trade, if they don't have the conducive space to trade, okay, look at the Lagos incident, for instance. In the last 3-4 months, there has been fire on Lagos Island for 2 or 3 times that I do know of. And it's always affecting the micro, small, medium enterprises. When this fire come up, it burns them off. And the ability to get back on their feet is almost non-existent. So I'm thinking at this point, the government would have said, okay, look, how can we address these issues that affect MSMEs in a holistic manner so that they can begin to bear good return for MSMEs?
Well, if you look at the talk all about MSMEs and you talk about micro businesses, if you're getting a tax exemption at 25 million turnover, you're already a multi-millionaire. That's what it means. You're running a multi-million business. So if you go on the street of Nigeria, how many businesses do you find that are multi-million in nature? So if we go below the SMEs threshold, what is in there at that level as incentives to lift people out of poverty?
I haven't seen much. I'm being very honest with you, I haven't seen much. But then there was some light, almost like a light at the end of the tunnel we began to see from 2015 downward, which I will say here, like I said some other time, is the Lagos Employment Trust Fund. It was carefully designed and established to enable the micro, small enterprises space in Lagos State. And as at the last time we did a little review around what LESTF was doing, we saw lots of impact in terms of the ability to trickle down support to micro, small enterprises. But then it does appear that in the last 12 months to thereabout, there's been a gradual decimation of the agencies, not doing much again. So, and in the absence of a structured approach to support MSMEs, we will not do much for MSMEs. I'll tell you something again. We published a report last 2019, May 2019, and we tried to look at what is the support structures like across states for supporting MSMEs in Nigeria. And only 4 states, as at that time, had established structures for supporting MSMEs. Only 4 out of 36 states plus the FCT.
Celestine.
And of these 4, only 2 states. Okay.
Celestine, we need to take a break at this point. Hold that thought there. We're back in 2 minutes. Don't lose it. Let's continue the conversation with Celestine Okeke, the lead partner at CEEDI. It's live to us from our Abuja studios. Celestine, thank you. Let's continue that thought of yours. But again, let me just add, 2019, we saw a lot of monetary policy changes by the central bank with effect to banks extending more credit into the MSMEs sector and all of that. Put all of that together for 2019. What's your outlook for the new year?
Okay, so as regards that, I have done some little digging around on if banks are actually extending MSME lending. I have not seen much, but what I know I have seen clearly is a lot of banks are now targeting people who have fixed employment, who are in paid employment, and offering them all manner of loans. Because then the risk that MSMEs are faced with that has not made them attractive to banks are still there. We've not addressed those risks. Until we address those risks, they may not become too attractive to banks. But then, if I take back from where I stopped before we had to go on the break, I spoke to the fact that only 4 states in Nigeria as of 2019 had support structures for MSMEs, established structures to support MSMEs. And of these 4, only 2 were actively working to support MSMEs. So if you look at the fact that we only have 4 states that have established structures, and we have 33, that was FCT without established structures, it then speaks to the fact that we've not yet deliberately set out to support MSMEs. So when we launch some ad hoc interventions and launch some funding interventions, what is then lacking is a support structure to make sure that these interventions work. So if you say, okay, for instance, CBN has asked banks to increase their lending rate to MSMEs, you would then expect state governments or some other state structures to begin to work with MSMEs to see how they can prepare them to benefit from this intervention. Because then, CBN asking banks to lend to MSMEs will not mean they will just open their vault and begin to throw money at MSMEs. Because if they do that, they will stand the risk of getting liquidated less than no time. They still need to do some minimum risk assessment criteria. So you would then expect maybe your SMEs or state government to say, look, how do we support MSMEs to benefit from this monetary policy intervention from CBN? But it's not happening yet. So when an MSME owner approaches a bank, he still has to meet those RAC. Because I tell you, a bank will not throw money at you because CBN says it should increase lending. It might just go back to CBN to say, look, yes, we opened our books, we're willing to lend, but the guys who came to us could not meet our minimum acceptable criteria. We can't just give them money. And I don't see CBN faulting a bank who says, look, bring these guys who meet our minimum risk assessment criteria. We'll give them the money. CBN will not fault them. So the tax is now on state structures, and even other private organizations say, look, there's a lending opportunity available for MSMEs, but how do we prepare them to benefit from this? Because I tell you, I worked in the banking industry for a while, and most MSMEs, when they approach you for loan, they come with so much, they're so optimistic that they can pay you. They have so much belief that they can pay. When you ask them very critical questions, especially around the risk in their business, they sound blank. They don't know what the risks are. They don't know how to mitigate the risk. And you wouldn't want to put your money into a business that may not pay you back. So we need to do some digging and some heavy lifting to support MSMEs. Launching policies alone will not do it. We need structures on ground. We did a report, I shared a copy with you in 2019. We compared the MSME space in Nigeria and South Africa. In South Africa, the equivalent of state governments in Nigeria here have structures established to support MSMEs, not even with finance, but to say, look, come talk to us. We structure a business for you. We tell you what to do at every point in time. We even do some forecasting for you to tell you that this sector might have challenges in the next 2-3 years. We support you to plan your growth. And we support you to then say, okay, this is where you can get access to finance. And this is what you need to do to be able to get access to finance. If we don't have all of that in Nigeria, whatever else we do will be built on nothing.
Celestine, as we speak, if you open the newspapers, the national dailies, you find all manner of people and organizations holding seminars and conferences on SMEs. It happens every day. I get them on WhatsApp messages. They're asking people to come around, pay 10,000, pay 20,000 to learn all the secrets of SMEs. But here we are, years after year, we keep talking about risk assessment and why it's difficult for SMEs to grow and get funding in Nigeria. So have we been teaching people wrongly? What's wrong?
Okay, let me take it from where I stopped. I mentioned that in South Africa, they have, the equivalent of state governments in Nigeria here, they have established structures where the same thing we are asking MSMEs to pay in Nigeria to receive, to pay 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 to receive, are offered free there. And because they are offered by state-established structure, they do a long-term work with you. But then, I don't see how a 2-day training or how a 1-day training would do the magic for an MSME, no. If you see the pipeline producing MSMEs in Nigeria, it speaks to people who are doing it out of a need to survive. A large number of them are doing it because they need to survive. They are not grounded. They don't have the basic knowledge. So, and I have been invited to a couple of these trainings, and I have turned them down. Because for me, if you ask me quite frankly, there's really no value they are impacting. It's not something you do in a day or 2 days. But then because there is no established government agency, of course there is established agency, but in terms of practice, there is none that an MSME owner can walk into now and they'll sit him or her down and put the person through a 1 week or a 2 week intensive training and then begin to support the person going forward. It's not existent. So if you do a Google today on how to start a business in Nigeria, the first 10 responses you get will be the same thing you told me about now. People who are saying come pay 10, 15, 20,000. And then, remember also that we said 94% of these MSMEs are micro enterprises. Most of them are doing less than 100,000 in capital. Where would they get 20,000 to go pay to get these trainings? So government needs to step up and fill the gap. The absence of government filling this gap is why you have different, I call them moneypreneurs. They come up with so many. In fact, I was driving with a friend on an occasion, and we had one on radio who was talking about credit. They would give you credit. They will give you credit after doing the training. So I told my friend, you know what? I want to go pay for this training and see how it will work. And we paid, went in. After a week of doing the training, they now started telling us some manner of things. You need to get this, you need to get that. And the whole idea was to thin you out and spread you so thin that you get tired and you don't come back again. So in effect, these guys are thriving because government is not playing the role it needs to play. The government steps up and begins to play that role. These guys will go out because they have nothing to offer you.
Celestine, what are you working on in 2020? What's going to be new?
Also, basically, we're looking at how we can support MSMEs in the agri-space, in the agri-business space, because it's a space where we have so much potential, but then the realities on ground for now are not what they should be or what we expect them to be. So we're looking at how we can work around policies. What policies can we have? What policies can we get government to think of and develop that will support MSMEs in this space? For instance, climate change is a big challenge that everybody's talking about, but then in Nigeria, as of today, the Ministry of Agriculture has not come up with a robust policy on how to help farmers adapt to climate change. In Jigawa State, in 2018 planting season, they lost 125,000 hectares to flooding. In 2019, they have not published the data because we know it is more than 2018. And then the question we're asking government is, what are you going to do to change the policy on seed, agricultural seed in Nigeria, so we can begin to invest in early maturing seed to mitigate the impacts of flooding? In Kano State, the challenge is more of heat, drought and heat, and it's beginning to impact negatively on smallholder farmers. And then the question is, what can we do to enable them get access to early maturing and drought-resistant seed? And then, in general, what is the ecosystem? What is the policy ecosystem for MSMEs in Nigeria? There is really no policy saying this is how we want to support MSMEs in Nigeria. So we want to, in 2019, work very closely with government to say, look, we need to have an MSME development plan in Nigeria, something that speaks to how we develop MSMEs in Nigeria, and then begin to look at what components we can address in 2022. What are the low-hanging fruit? Because if we have not articulated an approach to supporting MSMEs, we'll just be doing every other thing in a vacuum that we won't do within any context. So the key thing is an MSME development plan, and then specifically for the agri sector and the small-scale industrial sector, how can we support these guys? Because things are getting getting tougher than they used to be. Government is taking so much loan to enable it to manage the implementation of the budget. Things are thinning out so much that government may not even have time for MSME. But we need to keep putting it on the table and at the forefront of conversation that, look, without MSMEs, you can't do much. But with SMEs, you can do so much. So let's begin to look at how we can come up with a 5-year plan and say, for MSMEs in Nigeria across different sectors, this is what we will do over a 5-year period to support them, because MSMEs are at the heart of the development in Nigeria and they need to be supported holistically.
Celestine, whose job is it to put that development plan together?
Okay, so we have reached out to SMEs, the Small Medium Enterprise Agency of Nigeria. We've reached out to SMEs. We've started the conversation with SMEs, and they are open for us partnering with them to have the plan. So it's primarily SMEs' responsibility to think around, because that's the agency established by law to support MSMEs development. So we are pushing to have that conversation, not just a conversation, to start the process to say, look, let's sit down over a period of time and say, let's think around this process. And also, it's something that should also concern Ministry of Trade and Industries, because that's the ministry with oversight for SMEs and then for agriculture. But primarily, we have told SMEs that, look, it's your responsibility. You need to begin to push stakeholders to work with you to develop that. Because if you're not doing that, any other agency will not take it as a primary responsibility. So we're asking SMEs to convene other stakeholders so that we'll sit down and have this conversation. We need an MSME development plan in Nigeria. That plan will detail what we'll do in every other year from 2020 and how we'll do what we need to do. It will detail out what other agencies we need to bring on board to support the development. And until that happens, we won't do much. But good enough, with the conversation has started, we're hoping to move it from a conversation to a practice.
Celestine Okeke, the lead partner at SEEDI. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time talking to us about the new Finance Act and how that will impact the small and medium enterprises. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend and see you next time.